entonces ¿qué rayo pasó? Rayo, no, rayo lo reiniciaron. Rayo, me lo reiniciaron. No, me lo reiniciaron. Rayo, van a ser las 4 horas. No, puede ser que me hayan... no, me lo... Obviamente... Acá se puede configurar las dos veces... O sea, acá se puede configurar las dos veces que iniciaste el juego. Ah, yo en serio... No, ya, ahora me lo... ¿Qué? Ahora me lo dicen mucha gente, se toma en serio... Te ganan las 12 y te siguen delante. Pero en serio... Pero tómate el tiempo si configurarlo tienes. Sí, espero que pues la correcta así. Como cual. No. Como pegaste con una que pegas la pantalla todo con tu hora en el reloj. Aquí. O sea que dice que pues la hora correcta así como la cual que las 4 acá. Bien que lo que era yo. ¿Qué? ¿Eh? ¿Qué? Esperen, ¿qué? Pero la última vez que cuando jugué fue que había avanzado a algo, pero, o sea, que había avanzado muchas veces así, pero nunca había pasado esta.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
¿Qué? Welcome back.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427.
Sí,
Empl-
ya. Ok.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Esperen, ¿cuál PC era? Ah, ese era. Esperen, no era. Esperen, ¿cuál era? Esperen, pero cómo puedo pasar esto que... ¿Por qué? No, ¿por qué? ¿Qué pasa con ese? ¿Dónde estoy yendo?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Okay, a la oficina. Vaya que vaina más. O sea que el que el jefe conoce. Nada. Okay.
Stepping into it.
Nada. A ver qué dice. ¿Vendrá algo? Escuche. Que rompí el juego. No, parece que... Oh. Aquí debe ser acá. No, no parece que ya rompí el juego. Ay, igual rompí esta la vida, pero ¿qué te voy a hacer? Ay, ¿para qué? Bueno, ese coche como se dobla la tecla. Ese coche como... Ay, no lo iniciaré, empezar. Tercero. Ah, yo en serio, tercero. Allá vamos a ver qué cosas vamos a ahora mismo que... Ok, está.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Tiene una nota acá.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Yes, truly a room worth admiring. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Ah, sí, sí, sí.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Ah, mira.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot
Ay,
here.
¿en serio?
I'm
¿En
not
serio?
your enemy,
Aquí
really,
voy.
I'm not. But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Ah, ya, ok, ya.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ya dentro, rápidamente tocamos que dentro.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
pasar acá porque...
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
¿En serio? ¿Y si cómo salimos? Ahí está, podemos salir acá.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Para hacer lo que teníamos que hacer. Aquí debe ser en la oficina acá.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Ahora no se ven ahora. Como ven aquí estamos acá en que está en el palabre aquí.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
¿Dónde terminamos? ¿O dónde está? ¿No todavía sigo cayendo? Estaré muerto.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly. And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see that? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
La computadora de Stanley. Ahora estamos en la diagrama, así se ve la diagrama, así. Siempre noto la oficina de juego, camino desde dos puertas para... Vamos a ver distintas direcciones. Casi digo la primera. ¿Qué? Pero esperen, así. Esperen, ¿qué? Es igual. Ah, está igual. Ah, esperen, la que he ido. Esperen, que esta era la computadora de la oficina. Así, esperen, así eran. Y esperen los sonidos de botones. Esperen, así eran los sonidos. Esperen las tres puertas. La oficina. Es como si fuera una... Esperen, aquí es... Archivadores. Este sería pintura naturaleza. Esta es la computadora que utiliza Stanley. Aquí vamos. Es como si fuera un museo acá. Allá, el reloj de la oficina. La oficina del jefe que está acá. Así empezó, así vacío. Se fue y ahora como todo es ahora. Bien.
Stanley jumped in the river.
Bien. Son los empleados.
Then he pushed the number 8.
Ven que estamos en una oficina, en una pseudo oficina. Es la primera versión de la versión alfa del juego. O sea, la versión alfa. Parece que todo esto. La oficina. Así la oficina. La oficina se está en... Esperen cuál es la segunda. La primera está en el 2011. La segunda. Esperen que esperen cómo. Yo creo. Esperen que son estos. La oficina. Aquí. Bien. Vamos a cargas. Aquí estamos. Son las reuniones. Aquí estamos viendo la oficina. Los bases yo vienen puertas iniciales de todos. Esperen que... O sea, primero te aparecer y te desaparecer. Queríamos a mucho. Pero si aparecemos hasta el case. No puede ser que tiene tantas decisiones así. viendo como si fuera una oficina, un museo. Pero en zonas de tierra. En zonas de tierra. Vaya. Vaya anuncio del Trateluch que estamos jugando ahora mismo. El mantenimiento, la versión. Oficina. Vaya. No hay más que podemos hacer, que estamos viendo en la oficina. En el museo. Entonces ya pasamos por acá. Ahora vamos a pasar por acá. Pero en esa parte no habíamos pasado esta. Del final zen. Del final zen. Esto lo damos. Palancas del final zen. ¿Pero dónde? Esperen. ¿Algo más? No, todos presentamos. No, ya pasé por aquí. Y allá también. Esperen, correo electrónico. Esperen, este es el. Esperen que. Esperen Montgomery Jones. Esperen que. Del año 2012. Ya pasé por aquí. Ya pasé por aquí. Aquí mismo. Ya, ¿dónde te voy? Bueno, ¿dónde voy ahora? Pero esperen como esto. Yo creo que otra parte podemos pasar. Aquí, aquí, aquí. Ya vamos aquí.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
Nada, que vamos a hacer entonces. No,
Can you
movilización.
see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Turn off your PlayStation. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let...
¿Qué manera de romper la cuarta pared? Vaya que... Vaya qué manera más rara de romper la cuarta pared esta.
All of his co-workers were
Ah,
gone.
vaya, volvió.
What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ah, vaya, nuevo contenido. Ah,
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
vaya, hemos sacado más. O sea, estamos sacando más nuevos. Vaya, hemos pasado. Ahora estamos acá en parte nueva que estamos acá. Vamos que estamos acá. Siento.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers.
Sí, sí, así.
After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content. Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure.
Sí, vamos bien, tocamos que cuando tocamos la... ¿Por qué rayo? Hey.
Is it broken? What's going on here?
Vamos, dale una patada, narrador, algo.
Should we be moving somewhere? Or... Oh, here we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it. I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley.
Ah, pero porque esta parte de atrás. Vamos a ver qué cosa es. Esperen que...
All right, let's see it.
No, ¿en serio?
The jump circle.
¿Qué? ¿En serio? ¿En serio? Ah, yo, ¿en serio? ¿En serio eso es todo? ¿Saltar? ¿Ya en serio? ¿Una broma? Puro saltando solamente como... Saltando como esto, todo como tarado, como un tarado. No. Ay, yo saltando como un tarado.
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right? Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And if... Oh, wait. There's more.
No, que...
Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is.
Vamos a ver.
That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
¿Dónde está el botón generado para patear?
Greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than
¿Dónde está el generador para patear?
And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's trophies, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test trophy, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
No, no lo reinicies. No, ¿qué parte de no reiniciar? Dije, no reinicies. ¿Por qué narrador? Vaya que fastidioso eres. Narrador. ¿Por qué reinicias? ¿Qué afán tienes tú? ¿Qué afán, qué fetiche tienes con reiniciar, narrador? Vaya, ¿pero qué? ¿Pero qué rayos? ¿Dónde me mandaron?
Psst. Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something.
Sueña. Sal.
Oh, you don't want to see the cool surprise I made for you? Well, fine. You're a dork anyway. Oh, never mind. You're not a dork.
Yo, porque la voz me mató. ¿Por qué siempre me compensa? Siempre. ¿Por qué, narrador?
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap PlayStation port? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Sí, así, este era cuando, esta palabra en Chile, la primera edición en PC, que tuvo un premio de 2014. Vaya, unos tiempos. De original, remake, original. Que, o sea que era gratuito. En primer lugar. Así era la versión física del juego de Stanley Parable. Así era la edición de lujo, así. Cuando salió, así era el juego, así. Sí, así era, así se veía, así era el demo cuando vaya, aún de esto, aún sigo teniendo toda la rabia. Y eso solo trofeos difíciles. O sea, en este tipo, pero tenía que tener, para eso, para estar acá en este trofeo, tenía que estar menos de 5 años sin usar el PC. O sea, tiene que, no, o sea, de hecho, para que tener ese trofeo, no tener que jugar ningún juego en 5 años. En serio, son los más difíciles. Pensaba que era su auge. Yo voy a
And
mostrar
over
acá.
here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them. And now, it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
Vaya, así eran los juegos de antes, en el PC, cuando empezaban en sus primeros momentos instalarse el juego en CD. En sus primeros momentos, así eran. La puerta roja y azul.
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. All they had to do was transport it in pristine condition along to the PlayStation. Boom, done. And they couldn't even do that. Couldn't resist the urge to go meddling with a beloved franchise. These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again.
Minecraft.
Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh no, oh God, no, Stanley. It's a collection of reviews from Pressurized Gas, the extremely popular online storefront for computer games. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Pero en serio, no
I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
De lo que tenían comentarios negativos.
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered. What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have.
Vaya, aquí.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant...
Ya, ya.
Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary
No. Calla.
Well, there's sport. You really did
Este
catch me
no,
rambling
no.
on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a faultless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go...
Ya, vamos.
Okay,
adelanta.
welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unenjoyable. Stanley, Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer. And my God, there's no way out of the room. Stanley, the door is gone. It's completely gone. Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time. Just sitting here. Not a single person to speak with. And you'd think that that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking and you saying nothing. Would you think that it's exactly the same as always?
Termina el sufrimiento.
Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about our...
Sí. A ver, ya se fue. Muy bien, vamos que pegan acá. Ok. No. ¿Qué rayos pasó?
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave.
Bien, ya está. Por fin ya no está.
The end is never the end, 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 is never
Vamos,
the end.
que alguien me atiende este hombre. Por fin ya terminaron con su sufrimiento. Limpiando todo. Vaya. No sé, pero esta época ya tengo que ya tener. Me he pasado como 8 años. Estoy acá. Yo pasé referente a las sofás. Nada. Parece que no sé qué cosa, no sé qué va a pasar o que se todo se trata. No quiero saber lo que haya afuera. No quiero ni saber si hay algo macabro. Mejor. Ya ahora sí que sí lo es. Pero... Ok, ya está. Entonces qué pasó. ¿Qué pasó todo este tiempo? Bien, aquí vamos acá. Hasta que por fin podemos... Bien, aquí vamos.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Esperen que... Esperen, tengo que apagar... Vamos a tardar. Esperen que... Esperen que... Ah, no, vamos. Bien, nuevo. Aquí vamos acá.
Oh, good. You noticed my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Aquí vamos acá.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra-deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra-deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
Que Stanley Parable 2. Esperen, Stanley Parable 2. ¿Cómo
Yes,
todavía
you
no?
see, isn't this far superior to a measly port with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
Esperen ahora, estamos en
Calling
Stanley
it the
Parable.
Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential. Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features. For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is this button. Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, Let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this
Bien,
feature.
aquí va.
Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your
Bien, aquí
mind,
vamos acá.
forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim. I want you to imagine yourself living...
Jim.
Whoa, hold on. I wasn't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish first. Now, allow yourself to become Jim. All right, fine, whatever. It's just a meaningless button that says Jim. Are you happy now? Get out of here. I'm done with this button. Why don't you go humiliate me in front of a different feature that I worked very hard on?
Jim.
See, if you'd only played along, that would have been your name the button said.
Jim.
But no.
Jim.
Instead,
Jim.
oh,
Jim.
I can't even think about it. I'm taking the Jim button away.
Jim. Jim.
¿Qué? ¿Por qué? Porque me arruina la diversión. Narrador. A ver, vamos a ver otro botón a ver si encuentro otro.
Maybe I'll only let people named Jim play the Stanley Parable too. They would appreciate what I've created here.
Ven, que...
Now, here's something special. You remember that broken test trophy that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the trophy. Yes. You see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the trophy is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Ay, ¿por qué tengo que hacer? Porque funcione. A ver cómo hacerlo funcionar.
What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
Ah, yo cero. Ah, ya no hay nada. Perdón que ya salté ahí. Ya, yo vi nuevo acá. Vamos a ver qué hay. Epílogo. Entonces habrá vuelto nuevamente acá. Entonces habrá vuelto. No, no está, lo quitaron. No, parece que lo quitaron.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you go with? You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Happy 12th birthday, step-niece, it is. Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
Ah, yo en serio, ¿por qué tan...?
Ah, collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable.
Ya lo hemos obtenido. Unos de 6. ¿Qué eso es todo? ¿Eso es todo?
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely tragic.
Mira que vamos tofe, ¿ves? Ya usted ya. Bueno, trofeo gratis, no lo veo así.
Oh, goodness, Stanley, this is fairly awkward. I hate to do this, but before you leave, you really should go to the bucket exhibit. You see, there's a surprise I was going to spring on you later, and it involves the bucket. And I really do hate to break the illusion, but it's important that you go see the bucket, okay? All right, I'll get out of your hair now.
Cuando tenemos aquí vamos a ver cuando hemos llevado casi esto acá que bien como verán aquí estamos acá para que no sepan aquí estamos estamos haciendo un gameplay de Stanley para ver que estamos acá que estamos haciendo acá veamos.
You know what? Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well. It's... Oh, wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump circle? Oh, well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece, then.
No se puede ver porque estoy yendo una parte de la configuración nueva.
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, it would go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
Vamos a ver. Vamos a ver. Vaya, no pues veamos qué cosa del Balte acá.
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I am happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try. Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person. The benefits of the bucket seem to go on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2. Does anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award if it isn't already.
La salida, veamos si es la salida acá. Aquí la salida. ¿Es aquí? ¿Es aquí?
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features? Yes, I know it's not exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together, and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay. Are you ready? Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2. I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on. Let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything. I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could. But it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2. Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Esperen, damos están de palabra todos. Pues ya estamos acá. Esperen, como ya estamos en el mismo, están de palabra todos.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number... All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-worker. Stanley picked up the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find... Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the PIN number for the keypad was 2845. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation. The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine. Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls. Stanley gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the bucket have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen. Birds. Silly, silly birds. The control buttons became active again. Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds after another, and then it dawned on him. This wasn't a mind control facility at all. It was a facility for monitoring and surveilling silly birds all over the world. The mind controls were only a facade to disguise its true intentions. Had the bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the metal genius in his hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery. Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this place, flipping through live streams of the silliest birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the best. And Stanley was happy.
Bien, parece que ya saqué. No sé qué tipo de final le habré sacado esto. Y nada, ya enseño.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Ay, ¿por qué está?
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps
¿Por qué está rojo? A ver, vamos. ¿Por qué? Ah, ya en serio. Vaya, que estamos, parece que estamos en el tal de palabras. que como verán que aquí estamos ya tiene el canto de gameplay. Síganme en mi canal de Twitch que estamos acá, que estamos haciendo acá, tiene el canto. Con todo hemos terminamos acá en un directo de Twitch que hemos terminado hasta acá. Si la canto pueden síganme en mi canal de Twitch. Y nosotros ya hemos terminado con el directo que mismo que si les encantó, síganme en mi canal de... Si les encanta mi directo, síganme en mi canal de Twitch para que y activen las notificaciones, sabemos que si les encantó. Síganme en mi canal y hasta el próximo gameplay está en el Parabretos.